This is my first official video on my channel that's gonna go in depth with the aspects of a language that you would need to know to speak. I chose to go with Spanish first because I'm learning it right now, and I would even say that I have an intermediate to an advanced level of Spanish in all aspects of reading and writing, moderate speaking, and a bit of listening. Though I'm not a native Spanish speaker, I do have a substantial amount of knowledge when it comes down to the fundamentals of the language. And by fundamentals, I mean the first words, phrases, and sentences that you would need to know to start speaking Spanish on a beginner level. As I said in my previous videos, the first question I'd always ask you is if you're learning something new, why are you learning it and how do you want to learn? In this case, I would like to educate you on the Spanish language, mainly explaining how to speak it. If you want to learn Spanish because you want to understand it when you listen to it or when you read it or write it, the information that I'll provide will still help you with your learning. Nonetheless, most people learn languages in order to speak them, so that's my main focus of the video. However, regardless if you choose to learn Spanish to speak it, listen to it, read it, or write it, everybody has to start with the fundamentals of the language, understanding the basic syntax of the language, the alphabet, words, verbs, phrases, and everything in between. The Spanish alphabet is actually no different than the English alphabet, following the same letters. But there are a few differences, like having an ñ, which is an N with a squiggle over it, having 27 letters instead of 26, like in English, and also, every letter is pronounced differently. Also, keep in mind that I'm teaching Spanish through English, which is an easy way to follow when you're trying to learn a new language, through a different one. As someone who's learning Spanish, you don't necessarily need to learn how to pronounce every letter of the alphabet. What you do need to learn is how to use these letters in context. However, I will still pronounce them for you so that you can understand how the language is spoken. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, Ñ, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. That's how the language sounds like when spoken. As a side note, people sometimes like to include the letters ch and y, making the alphabet have 29 letters. But these are mainly sound letters that are used a lot less. And something important to say about the sound, y, typically speaking, if you're someone who is not of Spanish heritage, you will pronounce the sound as y. Two L's make a y sound, like llave, which is Spanish for key. However, and this is an explanation showing how poorly Spanish classes are taught in schools, oftentimes the system will hire Spanish teachers who come from different Spanish-speaking countries like Latin America, Spain, and maybe Mexico. And you would think that there would be no problems teaching this concept, but because every teacher teaches differently, especially in a foreign language course, their pronunciation completely changes for the sound of the person who's trying to learn Spanish and doesn't know anything about it. I once had a Spanish teacher that was teaching Spanish, but he was pronouncing everything through Mexican Spanish, which is a lot more understandable and easier to the person who's trying to learn Spanish the American way, like pronouncing key, llave, unlike my horrible Portuguese professor who pronounced it as llave. Saying llave, and you might even hear the phrase como te llamas, which means what do you call yourself, like what's your name, pronounced with the j sound. And that is because whoever is teaching Spanish like this, most of the time, comes from Spain or Portugal or any Latin American countries. The problem with that is that not everybody, especially American students, is used to this hearing, which makes it difficult to understand sound-wise. A person might have knowledge of the principles of Spanish, like the alphabet and everything else, but it will be very difficult to learn Spanish with every word pronounced with j instead of y. It would be like teaching English to somebody who has no knowledge of English through a teacher that's Australian, Scottish, or Irish. The person might know the system of the English language, but listening would be very difficult. Now, I would like to speak about the words that you would need to know to say daily if you want to speak Spanish. Once again, these methods work for me, and they may or may not work for you. But it's at least fine to share the knowledge that I have. After learning the alphabet, I began writing a lot of general words that I would use in a conversation, and as I said in my previous videos, you don't have to understand every single word you say, as long as you use a translator to translate these words and use them effectively. For now, the biggest advice that I can give is to just memorize these words and keep them locked in your mind. And whenever I say memorize this or memorize that, it basically means that I simplified the context to its easiest form. It cannot get any easier than this. So it's not going to be difficult to memorize these words and have them locked in your memory. Here's what I'm going to begin with. Accents, question words, prepositional words and adverbs, pronouns, days of the week, months, seasons, time words, and numbers. Number 1, accents. Accents in Spanish essentially help to indicate which syllable of a word should be stressed out when spoken out loud. The accents are placed above vowels, and whenever you say them, you put the emphasis of the sound on that vowel. Personally, I've seen many students struggle with this because they just pronounce things as they wanted without using the syntax correctly. Here's an example, and I'm using this example as an example. You don't have to know the rules for now. Yo hablo in Spanish means I speak. Don't worry about the conjugation. Yo hablo. That's the pronunciation. Yo hablo. However, él habló means he spoke. Él, with an accent mark, means he, because without the accent, it means the article, the, masculine. And also, H's in Spanish are not pronounced. So whenever you see a word beginning with H followed by a vowel, just say the vowel as it is. It's not hablo or habló, it's hablo habló. Hablo, habló. That's accents in Spanish. Number 2, question words. The best advice for these words is, again, just to memorize them. These are the question words, and in Spanish they look like this. Where is donde, when is cuando, what is qué, why is por qué, who is quién, which is cuál, how is cómo, and how much or how many is cuánto, cuánta, cuántos, cuántas. And also, whenever you write a question with them, you have to put an upside down question mark in the beginning. This is a rule in the language. And this is something good to remember. If you see these words with accents, the words are used as literal questions. Sometimes que, without an accent mark, can mean that. As in the sentence, I wanted to tell you that I'm happy. Sometimes donde, without an accent mark, can mean where I came from. I'm not using it as a question, I'm using it as a location. Additionally, por qué means why, because you can see the word being split and the emphasis is put on the que part. However, if you were to combine them together, pronounced porque, this word means because. Porque is why, porque is because. The last thing to note is that some question words have genders and plurality. For example, if I ask quiénes, I'm asking about who as in multiple people instead of one person. Another example is how many. If I say cuántas, I'm saying how many for them, feminine, because the ending a is most of the time feminine in Spanish. If I say cuántos, I'm saying how many for them, masculine, because the ending o is most of the time masculine in Spanish. Number 3, prepositional words and adverbs. Prepositional words can be fanboys, such as for and nor, but or yet so, and as a bonus, by. For is para, and is y, nor is ni, but is pero. Make sure that you have one R, because 2 R's, perro, this would be Spanish for dog. Or is o, yet is used as still, as in the sentence, I studied for my test, yet I failed. I studied for my test, but still I failed. This word is actually used as pero or sin embargo. So is así que, and by is por. Now we have some adverbs. If is sí, no accent, because with an accent you have sí, which means yes. Then is entonces, also is también. Of and from both mean de, but the meaning changes in context. With is con, to is a, in and on is en, and each is cada. Just make sure you know this information. Number 4, pronouns. I'll use this 2x3 chart to first explain their position of order in English. In English, you have I, you, he, you can also include she, but I'll say he just to put up some space. We, the pronoun in the 5th position, is actually you all, or y'all. English doesn't have this pronoun, but I will still include it because Spanish has it. And finally, they. These are the pronouns in Spanish. Yo, tú with an accent, because without the accent, it means tú, which is your. El, you can also say ella or usted, and usted actually means you formal, like when you're talking to a professional person. Nosotros is masculine, and nosotras is feminine. These pronouns have genders. Vosotros is you all masculine, and vosotras is you all feminine. And ellos is they masculine, ellas is they feminine, and ustedes is you all formal. Try not focusing on these pronouns because you will rarely use them in conversation. Make sure you know the main ones like yo, tú, él, and nosotros. Number 5, days of the week. Keep in mind that the reason why I'm again listing this information is because these are words that you would use the most when speaking, so you just need to know them. Monday is lunes, Tuesday is martes, Wednesday is miércoles, Thursday is jueves, viernes, sábado, domingo. You don't have to capitalize these words in Spanish as you do in English. Number 6, months. Once again, you don't have to capitalize these in Spanish. Enero, febrero, marzo, abril, mayo, junio, julio, agosto, septiembre, octubre, noviembre, diciembre. Number 7, seasons. Verano, otoño, invierno, primavera. Number 8, time words. And some of these have genders, such as second, which is segundo or secunda. This can also mean second, as in a position, I'm in second place, but the meaning changes in context. Minute, which is minuto or minuta. You can say unos minutos or unas minutas, which both mean some or a few minutes. Hour is hora, week is semana, month is mes, year is año. Make sure you put the ñ because without it you have ano, which is anus. Yesterday is ayer, today is hoy, and tomorrow is mañana. Mañana can also mean morning, but the meaning changes in context. And last one, number 9, numbers. Now, I'm not going to write every single number down because this will be a long video, but I'll give the syntax of how to say numbers, and from there you can say numbers on your own. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho, nueve, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. There is no point of listing numbers past 20 because all you do is take 20 and then add any number you want to it. But it has to be written as one word, like 22 or 23, and so on. 30 is 30 y and whatever number you want, like 32. 40 is 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 1000, and 1 million, millón. The last concept is positions of numbers, and these have genders. First is primero or primera. Second is segundo or segunda. It can also mean second as in time. I already covered that. Tercero, tercera. Cuarto, cuarta. Also, cuarto can mean room or quarter of the time, but the meaning again changes in context. Quinto, quinta. Sexto, sexta. Séptimo, séptima. Octavo, octava. Noveno, novena. Décimo, décima. There is no point of learning numbers beyond that, and it's actually a concept I'll cover in a future video. So for now, I want to say that this is it for this video. What I covered in this video is the fundamentals that you would need to start speaking Spanish. They all begin here. And of course, if you don't memorize all of them, you can always use a translator to translate the word that you forgot. And then it will be locked in your mind. Accents, question words, prepositional words and adverbs, pronouns, days of the week, months, seasons, time words, and numbers. This has been the fundamentals of Spanish. Thank you for watching this video, and hopefully I made your learning just a bit simpler.